Hello, Internet. This is David Rovix with another episode of Discussions with David, which comes to you these days on my YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter accounts, and then goes up as a podcast afterwards. If you look for This Week with David Rovix, wherever you get your podcasts, or go to davidrovix.com/thisweek, or get the David Rovix mobile app. And they're all archived in the Discussions with David playlist at youtube.com/drovix. And today I'm very happy to be having for the hour Laurel Krause from Mendocino County, California. And Laurel is the founder of the Kent State Truth Tribunal, among many other accomplishments in life there. In this long life at this point now, it's been... Laurel, I mean, it's been, I think of you frequently, but especially throughout 2020, seeing what's been going on. I mean, it's like, yeah, I've been thinking frequently of calling you up and getting you as a guest on my little live stream show, and finally got around to it. But I never know where to start with interviews, but let's just dive in. And I mean, there's been like massive protests just about every day throughout 2020, and massive amounts of police violence and people being killed at protests in so many different situations. And I imagine for you, it must be like a year-long flashback.
It's certainly a central focus of my life. The right to protest without the government killing you, the right to protest, part of our inalienable American rights that are completely unprotected at this time. And the corporations, the elites, and American leadership have taken it away from us. This right to protest.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, there's no indication that anything has changed in the past 51 years since protesters were being killed at protests in the United States half a century ago. I mean, it's really, you look around today and you don't see like, oh, we've made a lot of progress since then, huh? No.
Well, I mean, they're starting to take a look at domestic terrorism laws now, and people in Congress are calling for, we have to have domestic terrorist laws. And the fear in my gut is the people they're going to go after is BLM, not Capitol Hill riot people.
Yep.
And we know this. Yep. So we have to... I'm wanting to write on this topic. I've decided it's really important that I really put, pen to paper on what this means to not just me, my family, but individuals and the collective, more importantly. Mm-hmm. The collective has been trained to believe that people are not allowed to protest. You get arrested for protesting, and you're putting your life in your hands when you go out there and protest, because they learned that because my sister Allison Krause, that was killed at Kent State May 4, 1970, as she protested the Vietnam War on her campus. They made it illegal for her to do it, and then they shot her dead for it. And since then, no accountability, no acknowledgement that what they did was what they did. Instead, it was, the guard were in fear for their lives. And that was actually the first time that kind of commentary came forward in our lifetime, that military men wearing, war regalia with M1s and tear gas masks were in fear from their lives from students crossing the campus.
Exactly. And there's like every element of the whole situation on May 4th, 1978 on the campus of Kent State. When you pick apart all the elements of the whole thing, it's so reminiscent of so much of what's been going on recently in terms of like, I mean, just to take one example, the way that the anti-war protesters and the students and others were being so vilified by politicians like the governor of Ohio, and of course the governor of California at the time, Ronald Reagan, the president, Richard Nixon at the time. the things that they were saying. I mean, they were
Vice
saying that
President Agnew too. He had a
Agnew,
time.
right? And they actually said that these protesters. I believe the quote was they're worse than Nazis or something. It was
Worse
just the
than the
most
brown
bizarre,
shirts.
worse than the brown shirts.
That's what Governor Rhodes said. And Nixon called all the students protesting, all the young people protesting, bums. And my sister was still alive. He called her a bum before he killed her.
Mm.
And it might be shocking to hear that I hold President Nixon accountable for Kent State, but I do.
Absolutely. I mean, the things that he and every other, I mean, so many other politicians at so many different levels, but right there at the top, the way that he was vilifying protesters and, of course, encouraging. I mean, didn't he say like if they want to, or was it Reagan who said if they want a bloodbath, we'll give them a bloodbath? That was just days before the massacre.
He said that, and it was incitement the whole time. This is how they do what they do. This is not an unusual event in American history. When the FBI and actually COINTELPRO is the group that I hold most responsible for my sister Allison's killing.
Do you have information that came about because of the disclosures with COINTELPRO, with the counterintelligence program that were related to your sister and the FBI
I
and
haven't
stuff?
been able to pull up anything like that. We don't have the resources to go into that kind of stuff, to tell you the truth, and maybe we will someday. But I know just because of going through all this voluminous material that I have access to, not COINTELPRO released information. I haven't seen any of that. I would really like to, actually.
I mean, some of that stuff. I mean, because we know about COINTELPRO because of the wasn't it because of the raid on the FBI offices in Media, Pennsylvania in the 1970s? I believe. Am I confusing two different events? I
No,
believe that's what happened, right?
absolutely true. They had no idea what that word was when they found
Right.
files. But let's explain this to the people here.
Yes, please.
COINTELPRO is the covert army of the FBI.
Right.
It was founded by J. Edgar Hoover for his dirty tricks. And that's what he did. It was very well funded, and they would pull in key people from all the military of the United States to do these special tasks, these projects. They would pull in Army intelligence, and they would pull in, the National Guard. Any kind of military group, anyone that they wanted. In fact, it didn't have to be military. This was COINTELPRO, counterintelligence programs. And this is the beginning of this counterintelligence thing that is ruling our world right now,
Yeah.
But J. Edgar Hoover did this, and it was not known at the time of the Kent State Massacre or the Jackson State Massacre or any of those elements. It came in, we first became aware of COINTELPRO from the media heist that happened of the FBI files. I think that was in 72 or 3. I'm not really
right.
And when they found those files that said COINTELPRO on it, they had no idea what it meant.
Right. They learned a lot of things. We all learned a lot of things from those files, huh? And we're still learning about FBI, from other FOIA applications. Although my FOIA applications, all the intelligence agencies said they had nothing on me, which I know isn't true. Actually, I mean, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I know that's not true. And they said they had nothing. So I don't. They're not always telling us the truth when you do these FOIA applications, but other people get stuff from them somehow.
Well, we've done a FOIA inquiry into Terry Norman, who is one of the people that was involved in the current COINTELPRO plot at Kent State. There's a lot of alleged stuff related to him. It's alleged that he actually fired the first shot at Kent State. He created a signal for the guardsmen who could then, give the command to fire because they heard the shots that were prompting. It was supposed to be like the sound of sniper fire coming from this FBI guy, and this is what they always do. And then the guardsmen then the command was given, a very unusual non-military command at the Kent State massacre. And this has been disputed since day one, that there was a command to fire, but the guardsmen all went up the hill, they all turned in unison, and they all shot in unison. It's very impossible to do that without a command. That's just how it goes.
Right. And they were at 300 feet distance from anyone that was throwing stones, I believe was whatever, at 300 feet.
There was varying differences. They were at least 100 feet from the stone throwers. My sister was 343 feet. There were stones, fragments found in her pocket. She threw stones. She could not possibly throw stones 300 feet. They were pebbles. They were not bricks or anything like that. They were in her pockets, just fragments. And more than, she was hurling, cuss words at them more than anything else, telling them they were MFers and stuff like that. And why were they doing this? And why were they shooting tear gas? This was lunchtime. It was 12:20 something on campus.
And what they were doing on the campus and what the National Guard was doing on campuses all over the place was responding to protests that were themselves in response to the discovery that the U.S. had been engaging in illegal bombing campaigns of Laos and Cambodia and killing millions of people in the process. And people were only just discovering that this was even going on, I think, was the sort of the context of the time.
It was a really tragic time. The government and the media had full control of the narrative, and they haven't let go since. Is
that right? Like when you look back at the way the media coverage was, because I mean, when I look at a lot of the media coverage from the Vietnam War, in compared to the sort of sanitized media coverage of more like the past 20, 30 years, it just seems like at the time that they showed a lot of stuff that would tend to turn people off to the war. I mean, they showed.
At the time of the Vietnam War, they were showing the casualties and stuff on the TV. They don't do that anymore.
They stopped doing that.
Absolutely cannot do that anymore. No, people would actually get turned away from war if they saw what we were doing in their name.
They were kind of recruiting for the anti-war movement.
They were, and they realized, and that stopped real quickly. But they had the Kent State article pre-written in the New York Times before the event.
Wow.
They said they had the quote from the guy, the adjutant general of the National Guard, saying, "Well, we had to respond to sniper fire." That was in the first New York Times article, and it never showed up ever again because they were testing their messages. What resonates with a group of, the younger generation in our country? What were they so upset about? How do we fix the narrative to that? And so they didn't want to actually talk about that sniper fire because that's something they created. So instead, it went into the recesses, and that's how the cover-up begins.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And there's always this testing of lines, and then unnamed sources say, and yeah.
Well, I've been digging around in all this last 2 years very specifically because I keep coming back to the CIA.
Right. Interesting.
They're managing the narrative now.
Mm-hmm.
They have not ever everything comes massaged and made sure that it's accurate for their narratives. Always. And the person who was put in charge of that kind of stuff, counterintelligence programs and all sorts of stuff in our current day, she helped write the torture report. And she was head of counterintelligence, counterterrorism, that's what they called it. And her name is Stephanie Dane Smith. She works at the CIA. She actually went to Kent State University undergraduate. From 75 through 79, she graduated. And while she was there at Kent State, she got recruited to work at the CIA. And they sent her to Harvard for her graduate degree. And she joined the CIA, I believe, in '84 full time. And she worked there for 25 years.
And what's she doing there with reframing or trying to frame the narrative of Kent State?
Well, when she was working there for 25 years, she actually authored she was one of the key authors of the torture report. And so she got a name for herself, and being able to write these types of reports so that they would be palatable to the, U.S. citizens. And,
Right.
there was a lot, I don't know if you remember the torture report, but it was a big deal. There was going on related to that. If they wouldn't release us the official torture report, it had to be rewritten by Congress for us to get. And by the time we got it, which is, years later, of course, we get this torture report, and it's been totally, rewritten to be, kind and gentle about torture.
So is this related to the torture at Abu Ghraib and
Yes,
that? Okay.
yes, it's the whole Abu Ghraib stuff, and,
Right.
and Gina Haspel, the director
Right.
of the CIA, she was very involved in Abu Ghraib, and one of her top people in making sure that this report was written right was Stephanie Dane Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So for the 50th, we're going forward for the 50th anniversary, and I want to do something special for my sister. I was hoping we could break through, maybe.
But then trying to do this anniversary during a pandemic, I mean, that must have really sucked.
But what happened on the 49th, just after the 49th, they announced that Stephanie Dane Smith was going to be chair for the Kent State commemoration, the 50th. And they had $2 million to put in her pocket to do it right.
They actually hired a CIA operative to run this thing, and because she had been a graduate of Kent State. I mean, what kind of choice of people? I mean, of all the different.
She had written the torture report, so she was coming to write the Kent State report. Let's get real.
That's astounding. I mean, there's and so many graduates of Kent State who went on to become distinguished members of the left that are quite quite safe and could be good speakers for a commemoration or something. But they pick a CIA operative. That's astounding.
They picked her, and we had a shit fit. I'm sorry,
No, we're not in radio. Okay.
First I had to figure out. I mean, I got a Facebook message from somebody telling me, the CIA is going to be in charge of the 50th, and I went, "What? Are you kidding him? Are you just too ludicrous?"
Amazing.
And what do they have to do with this? What is this about? And so that happened, and basically we started doing research, and we find out 25 years at the CIA. She had retired. She had. It's a long. I don't want to trash her. She has her life. Anyone could go look it up. But she had a celebrated career at the CIA in writing these kind of reports and dealing with counterterrorism. My sister was not a counter-terrorist, God damn it, man.
Yeah, she wasn't a terrorist at all. Right.
But boy, in their eyes, she was.
Yeah.
And so that's how they write the report.
Yeah.
And so we did a campaign where we sent emails to the then president of the Kent State University saying, we do not want the CIA in charge. For what reason is the CIA in charge? What do they have to do with Kent State?
Have you gotten any response? I mean, obviously that you've gotten very little press on this because, I mean, I haven't heard of it.
It made it to Common Dreams.
Okay.
Hallelujah. And we got a lot of people sending in notes. We broke her mailbox. 8 days later, Stephanie Dane Smith stepped down.
Oh, good. She resigned. Yeah, right.
Didn't.
No.
She didn't. She went covert again.
She's the ghostwriter now for the new.
And she's very involved, and she's always active on the pages at Kent State, and she feels she has a job to do.
Yeah.
She's getting paid 6 figures to do this, by the way.
She is really by Kent State.
They all are.
Is that public? I mean, this is by Kent State University. Is she employed by them?
She's employed by Kent State University.
Wow.
The Kent State 50th was a payday for all those guys because they had millions and they didn't even do anything really because it was COVID. So where did that money go is what I'd like to know.
Yeah.
None of it went for us to do our commemoration. We did the Kent State 50th teach-in. I did that with Mickey Huff. And it was basically asking social media people and political scientists and those who were there about the meaning behind the 50th, behind Kent State 50 years later. What have we learned? And we just did a very short thing because we didn't have any time, because Kent State didn't tell us that we were not going to be involved. They let us on. They told us that we would be involved. I had asked Mickey Huff to speak at the Kent State 50th. We do that every year, and we have for the last 10 years. And they just wouldn't return my phone calls.
Wow. That's one way to deal with it. Huh? Just don't return phone calls.
They're like teenagers having a horrible fit. They just don't feel responsible to anybody. I mean, I heard that they lowered the flag on the 50th for the Kent State. No one told me. I mean, you have to talk to the people that you've been harmed.
Yeah, exactly. And then with all this,
a real apology, you got to say, we did this and we're sorry to my face, not this, the governor of Ohio did it and I get it in a letter, 3 weeks later.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then with all the, and this is all living history. This is our lives here we're talking about. This is not some
I'm
kind
not
of
dead
like,
yet.
yeah, you're not dead. And this is very much alive. And this is, there's so much talk in the media these days about sort of analyzing history and kind of coming to terms with terrible history of racism and police violence. But when it comes to the history of the National Guard committing massacres of anti-war protesters, then there's been no reevaluation, nobody reaching out to you.
There's no facility either. There's no mechanism for them to actually do credible, blue ribbon, impartial investigations.
That's a really good point. And you founded the Truth Commission. Let's talk about that. Why Truth Commission?
Wait. Let's talk about how they really never take a look at truth. It's all their version, and no one is ever. We're not allowed to, say, hey, it didn't happen like that. You know. There's no public response involved in any of this either. They don't ever have it so that we can say, hey, this happened with us. And so in 2010, when I started forming the Kent State Truth Tribunal, for the 40th, I felt I had to do something. I mean, I had been working in a career in high-tech Silicon Valley sales and marketing for 20 some years. I moved to the Allison Center for Peace. I wanted to do something for my sister. I wanted to use technology to do it if possible, because I've been working in high tech and all that. That's what we used to call it, at least.
Right.
And, I put it out on Facebook to create the Kent State Truth Tribunal. My first response came from this lovely woman named Emily Kunstler.
Oh, wonderful. Bill Kunstler's daughter, who is also a radical lawyer, right?
No, she's a filmmaker.
Oh, filmmaker. Okay.
Yes.
But I'm thinking of the right person. It's Bill Kunstler's daughter anyway, right?
Yes, Bill Kunstler's daughter, and Sarah, her older sister, is the lawyer, and her mother, Margaret Ratner Kunstler, is also a lawyer. It's a whole family.
Oh, it's a wonderful dynasty. The Ratner Kunstler dynasty can't get better couple of families.
She sends me a message, and she posted it on it. I'm saying, calling for, core members of the Kent State Truth Tribunal. It was January 1, 2010.
Great.
And she said, I'm in.
Great.
And I sent her a message that says, and so who are you? Because I hadn't put it together. I was a little
excellent.
I guess. And we talked on the phone, and I immediately asked her if she wanted to be co-founder. And she agreed.
Great.
And we ran towards May 2010. And we had, we decided that we were going to have a tribunal where we can ask the people who were there what their experience was. And we put questions together related to the people from the killing of 5 by the KKK, the Greensboro Truth Commission. They organized that.
Right.
I think it was like 73 or so. 5 people were killed by the KKK.
79 maybe, but yeah, and because I remember, and then this Truth Commission there was it seemed very good, at least what I heard about it. I mean, in terms of
they
Mhm.
helped us with our questions.
Right.
So that they were evocative and neutral, because we're all in the soup here, and so
Sure.
they helped us with that. And I actually reached out to my professor at Boston University, Howard Zinn, and
Uh-huh.
I
You went
asked
to
him.
Boston University and
I
studied with
did,
Howard Zinn?
yeah, and Howard. It was at the beginning of January. I said, Howard, we're going to try to do. I sent him an email. I said, we're going to try to. Can you please come? Because I wanted him to help us with this.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it,
Mm.
but it's really important. He gave me a great quote about how it's really
Mm.
important to remember this. It's the same as the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and he said it
Right.
much better than I. But that's you can go look at truthtribunal.org and see his quote on our website.
Yeah.
And so I went forward, and 2 weeks later he died.
Mm.
Devastating, and I guess that's why he couldn't make it.
Yeah, I guess he wasn't feeling so hot. I hadn't known about it, but yeah.
But he gave me that, and he also encouraged me. And there's nothing like having Howard Zinn encourage you. What can I say?
Absolutely, right.
He was a friend for life, a very good man, and he trained me. I met him when I was 18. I mean, he
great
changed
time to meet someone like that.
For 3 years, I sat in his classes.
Yeah.
He was my mentor.
Yeah.
And so I see things through his guys on purpose. And I'm very happy for that I have that. And so go ahead.
You were, I mean, it was not too long after you started the Truth Commission, I guess, that you were basically on your way to Switzerland, which was when I recall when I met you at some point in Mendocino some years ago. You were on your way to Switzerland and to the UN.
Let me finish up with the Truth Tribunal first, because
Please.
It's a really wonderful story.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It happened at our first year of doing this, which is now 11 years ago, which is hard to believe. But 11 years ago, Emily and I decided to do this, and we were going to have a Truth Tribunal at Kent State University, and we decided to do it for 4 days. I went and rented space. I got insurance. We went the whole way out on this whole thing. We had a recording studio. We did everything that we could to make a loving, truthful environment for people to share very difficult stories. I mean, this was something that changed every one of those people's lives. And we got, like, in our first tribunal at Kent State, we got over 60 people to participate in 4 days. And we filmed everything by live cast as well as with a really great camera. And the live cast was live casted on Michael Moore's front page for all 4 days. Great. And so anyone could watch. And my mom sat there spellbound, in the tribunal. And we had this living room thing with, like, bar mitzvah food. And we had a social media area, and people could come there and they could gather together and they could share and they could watch on a big screen what was going on upstairs. With Emily filming and doing everything. And so we did that for 4 days, and we wrapped up and we went home. And as soon as I got home, I got a call from my mom. I'm back in California. My mom's in Pennsylvania. I get the call and she says, I gave them a quote. I had to do it. I hope you're not going to be mad at me. And I said, what are you talking about? And at this point, this is like May 8th or something like that. And I've been running since January 1st, literally. I mean, I don't have the wherewithal to fund this kind of thing. I'm a single woman. I haven't been rich ever, but I managed to pull this off. But I was totally exhausted. I couldn't even speak at this point. I was just like, I made it home. Hallelujah, And my mom says, I hope you're not going to be mad. And I said, well, what did you say? And she said, what had happened is, the command to fire had been isolated. The Kent State command to fire had been isolated for the very first time on the 4th.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
And it was very compelling, and it broke every record on everything about Kent State. It was all over the place. And Alan Canfor had actually found this.
Found the audio, huh?
It was an audio recording on CD in my father's archive at Princeton related to the Kent State lawsuits.
Wow.
We had to put it at Princeton because Kent State couldn't be couldn't be trusted to actually not ransack and steal everything.
No way.
That's what they do. I mean, they got their story to tell. It's
hell yeah. They are not a neutral participant in this.
No, they're complicit. And so basically, he got the CD for $10, and then they found a forensic expert, the best in the world, forensic expert, 2 of them, but one was really took it to heart. He was Stuart Allen. He's been working in audio forensics. He's a scientist, an expert since Watergate. And so he's independent, thank God. And so he was doing this when I was doing the tribunal. I had no idea this was going on. And it broke in the Cleveland Plain Dealer that the order to fire was given. And this was a huge shakeup because it had been denied by the government forever. They have actually said there was no order to fire. Now,
and what about the sniper? Was there new information about this sniper that was?
Yes, actually, well, that's a little bit later in the story. So basically, it breaks, it's great, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. And so as time progressed, we decided to do 2 more tribunals during the year. And we did one in San Francisco so that West Coast people could come, and we did one in New York City. And the one that we did in New York, I asked Stuart Allen to participate in our tribunal and give his analysis of the Kent State tape, his forensic, and do it in front of our cameras. And he did. And I had to listen to it along with everybody else, my family and it was just, I'm telling you, no one should have to do that.
No.
But
it was just
50 years later to hear,
all the detail. Yeah.
To actually hear the shot that killed my sister,
God.
and understand all that they had, all the elements that they had, covered up on purpose about her killing. I got to tell you, it's very hard to live with that.
Yeah. And you have to live with it.
The government can do that and get away with it. And that the only ones that are going to live with the pain are us.
Yeah.
It's just
for the
not
rest of your lives.
So anyhow, we did that. And as that was going on, as Stuart Allen was getting ready for his testimony, he ended up going and listening to everything again. He's a very busy man. He started digging around a little bit more, and he listened to before the order to fire. And when he did, he heard the sniper fire that I was talking about with Terry. He heard altercations before the sniper fire. He heard people saying, "Kill the pig." What happened is, I don't know for sure. This is what I have been able to put together. It was a sunshiny, gorgeous day on May 4th. It had been raining for weeks. The kids were out. They had been wanting to get out in the sunshine. The guy, he's there. This is in the middle of the protest. It's a very bad time. It's right near the end before they shoot. And he pulls out his pistol, and it's nickel plated. And so the nickel plated pistol, the sunshine on it caught a lot of people's attention. And then they attacked him. And you could hear it on the tape. You hear the fist being thrown. You actually hear it. And the next thing that comes off is, the guard then go up the hill, and then they all turn in unison, and then, actually they go up the hill, and then there's a command, and the command says, "All right, guard." Who says "all right, guard" in a command, right?
All right, guard. It sounds very informal.
But you see General General Canterbury there, and in the pictures of the shooting guardsman, and he's wearing a suit.
Mm.
You know, a commander cannot give an order wearing a suit. You have to be in uniform.
Is that right? It certainly seems very unusual.
And he's wearing a suit on purpose.
Oh, yeah?
So that he will not be the commanding officer.
So he doesn't have to implicate himself, and they can claim there was no commanding officer.
There was no command. Well, there was no that he
no
didn't
command,
you know, and that
right.
that he was not, you know, and nothing happened here, you know, because he didn't do it, and so that came, you know, the orders to fire come, and then so this came out from Stuart Allen, and it changed everything in terms of putting some truth into the narrative.
And it was audio that already existed, that was already existing in an archive at Princeton, which is I think particularly interesting, because it seems like with a lot of the time that's the case. Like the stuff was already out there, it just hadn't been thoroughly examined.
Well, it had been thoroughly examined in '74 by the FBI, you know, as much as
by the FBI.
But in '74 they didn't have the technology; it wasn't digital.
Right.
And so here in 2010, the digital tools finally appeared, and you could separate the sounds, so you could suppress and you could enhance. And Stuart Allen, being an expert forensic scientist, he managed it all, and he found that, and he was like, he says there was a pre-event that created this, and the media and the FBI and Kent State University and everyone associated with this goal to maintain the cover-up, it was like they shut it down. They shut it down. And so very few people know about this. And when they do hear about the commands to fire, what they hear is that it's been disputed.
Exactly. That this is the kind of thing that tends to happen, like with this and so many other cases. It's like the command to fire. It made the news. It was, I mean, at least I heard about it. You know, it was talked about at some point for a few days, and then nothing, and then it's out of the news cycle. And then whenever we hear about the Kent State massacre, it goes back into the framework of this false narrative, which is just, that's, I don't know exactly what the process is, how that happens, but it doesn't get integrated into the real history of what happened. The order to fire.
I mean, you learn things it's not allowed to be entered in because they have their narrative and they're sticking to it. And they call it the Kent State shoot. Excuse me. They call it the Kent State shootings.
They don't call it a massacre, of course, right?
You know, that's not Stephanie Dane Smith kind of word, you know. Oh, by the way, they're teaching a class at Kent State University this summer, and high school and junior high school teachers can get their CEU credits from Kent State University on how to teach the Kent State shootings.
Oh my goodness! And what's CEU? That's a
continuing education unit for teachers.
Wow.
You have to get credits every year to maintain your certificate. And so they're teaching a class at Kent State University. I think they're going to be doing 2 sessions. It's all online now because they can do that online now. And they're paying the people that are taking the class $1,300.
Wow. So they're just like, you got paid CIA propagandists getting paid by the university to pay teachers to internalize a false narrative. And this is all, it tells you how important they think it is to maintain the false narrative and how much they invest in this.
Kent State is one of the don't touch stories of our time.
Yeah,
it has been banned, and everyone associated that wants the truth then gets banned, and we get attacked, and we have people showing up in our lives that are creating havoc on purpose because the CIA will not be thwarted. No! How dare we?
It's interesting too that we don't hear much about Jackson State either, even though, like even in the course of sort of re-examining a lot of events that have taken place that were obvious examples of institutional racism and outrageous behavior on the part of the authorities, massacres, etc. Jackson State, neither Kent State or Jackson State is ever talked about in my world anyway. Listening to NPR and various things.
They ended up. I mean, Jackson State is 2 people died, and it was right out 10 days after Kent State. Most people didn't hear about it then. Let's
right.
get real. I mean, it never even made it into mainstream press, really. Everyone was so into the Kent thing, it just kind of got, forgotten. But my opinion of this is that, J. Edgar Hoover made sure he had full coverage. Because at the time, what happened was, Fred Hampton, he was killed in December 1969, which was just 5 months before my sister's killing. And that was COINTELPRO. And if you read any of the new books that are out and the new things that are showing up, it's
great
all
new
coming
research
out about COINTELPRO being involved here. Well, I'm waiting for a COINTELPRO to be called out about Kent State, God damn it. When is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? When are we allowed to call it what it was? And how my generation, my people were targeted. And the people who targeted them have gotten away with everything.
Yep. And they run the country.
And they're really in power now. I mean, it's not like they've receded in any way. They made it much worse. This is much more of a horrible machine than it ever was in 1970, let me tell you. I mean, they got people like Stephanie Dane Smith doing a fabulous job,
Right. And it's very much a bipartisan endeavor there.
And then they have all their talking heads. They have all their talking heads and all the all the people. These are all security state people. Security state people are the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. I mean, and we act like, oh, they're all separated and they don't. They're not.
Yeah. And then they have to get special. They have to get special concessions from Congress in order to appoint somebody to the cabinet who has too recently been a top-ranking military general. I mean, there are reasons why these laws are in place, even though they are, ineffective. But Laurel, can you talk about your trip to Switzerland? What was that like? I don't know why I'm so fixated on it, except that when I wrote the song about the massacre, I happened to be in Bern, Switzerland. So I was thinking about and you were just about to go there when I saw you that time.
There aren't many happy stories that we have. This is one of them,
They took you seriously? Yeah? It was like that kind of happy story?
Oh, man. They couldn't have taken us more seriously.
Great.
That's the beauty of this. But what happened is I was reading in the newspaper about the CIA losing a court case related to a fellow in Canada who had been renditioned and tortured. And he brought charges against the CIA for picking him up, dumping him off somewhere, and then torturing him, in another part of the world, and ruining his life for years. And so he decides to sue the government, the CIA, for it. And the ACLU, the US ACLU was involved, and he ended up, the person who was in charge was Jamil Dakwar, and he's head of the human rights program at the ACLU. And so I watched this, I read this article, and then I saw the quote about it. And the quote was really intriguing because it could equally be applied to the Kent State massacre. And so I called him up on the phone, which is what I like to do. I love to talk on the phone with people. And he answered. And I said, I read your article, congratulations, and, your win. And he was like, and who is this? And I said, it's Laurel Krause. I founded the Kent State Truth Tribunal. And he says, I've heard of your tribunal. That made my day for sure.
Great.
That, and I said, well, he said, this is, it was at the end of December, and he says, the holidays are coming up. Maybe we can talk at the beginning of January. He says, I'm going to do some research. Let me see what I can do for you. And I mean, it's more than I could have ever expected. And I called him in January, very beginning, and he had 3 options for me.
Wow.
I mean, no one's had one option for us, And so the first option was take it to the United Nations. And I had already tried to take it to the ICC and failed. It's not part of the Hague. I tried taking it to the Hague. And the reason we're not part of that is because their purview is only 2001 and up. And so, he said he would help me with my application to the United Nations Human Rights Committee for the 4th periodic review of the United States. And basically every 5 to 7 years or so, anyone that belongs to the Human Rights Committee at the UN has to then go through a review on their human rights.
Oh, excellent.
And so we got in. There were a lot of people that got in. We were supposed to go in October 2013. It got shut down it got canceled because of the government shutdown. I was actually on the road going to Geneva at the time that I was pulled back. I turned around, which was really great because we got someone to film us and do all this stuff and documenting our trip to Geneva, Switzerland in March 2014, where we participated. And it was amazing. It was a week of participation where you work with the members of the human rights, not the committee, the human rights, one of the human rights groups. And then you go to the big house at the UN and you have the US formal review, which is a treaty hearing. And we had written all these reports, I wrote them, related to, what is our cause, shadow report, background, and then final report. And I did everything I could to make sure that it was substantiated. But my call was make the U.S. examine the order to fire. I mean, let's get this into the body of part of the Kent State story. Get it accepted by the government.
Yes.
And, it's the UN is very tricky, but what's really great is the treaty that this is the Internet ICCPR. It's about civil and political rights, and basically they have rules, and the rules are, if you have a massacre, you have to do impartial investigation. Then you have to make amends. And then you have to, fix it for the future so that everyone knows, but that doesn't happen in the United States. The United States doesn't follow any of that. Right. We have a rule, the government investigates itself in the U.S. That's
right. And then maybe issues an apology and then moves on, right? Like with the internment of the Japanese Americans and the confiscation of all of their property, and like 50 years later, then Reagan says, "Oops, sorry," and gives them a few $1,000 each, right? And that's supposed to be it. Like we're supposed to move on now.
And we don't get that. I mean, Kent State doesn't get that. Jackson. No. I mean, okay, the Japanese got it because they're a large group in the United States, and they wanted to treat the Japanese right, and so they probably had to do it for global reasons, because they didn't want to persecute the Japanese specifically, and that would look bad in Japan. I mean, I don't know their reasons on all this, but they're not going to, Kent State is, don't touch it. You will not touch, and if you do, you will put your life on the line. They will kill for that. I know that. They killed for my sister for just protesting.
Yeah, exactly. In the course of working on the tribunal, Laurel, I imagine that one of the sort of side effects has been to meet a lot of other people who have similar history and stories to you and your sister and your family. Really. No?
I wish. No, they keep us all separated. We're not ever supposed to come together, and they've done that really well at just Kent State in the community. They made sure that we're all splintered and that we don't, we're fighting each other instead of coming together with a common word, because that's how they do what they do.
Interesting.
But anyhow, back to the UN. On the fourth day, is the Thursday. We're in the big house, and the UN Human Rights Committee, they start going through their list of issues. And you sit in the room and you've got that thing in your ear that has 6 different languages. And it was done mostly in English, which was great. So I didn't really have to depend on that. But it was real fast. And so, they start talking, and basically they're going through the list of issues. And the guy that was in charge, that was leading the group, he brought up Kent State. And so we got our first comment. And then someone else, actually the Human Rights Committee person from Israel, Yuval Shani, he brought up 2 issues related to Kent State. The issues overall were about command responsibility. You give a command, who's responsible? The second is, what do you do when you find new information? Do you have an investigation? And excessive force. Those were the 3 issues that came up. Now, most people that go to the UN Human Rights Committee, they get 1 issue. We got 3. It was a big day for us. I was sitting there and I'm listening, and I'm going, wow, and I'm trying to, remember, it was just so enthralling. And so that night, go home, go to the hotel, try to sleep, forget about it. And then the next day we get there, and it's the U.S. has to respond. And the guy that's in charge is the U.S. Assistant Attorney General, the Civil Rights Division, something like that. And he's the highest ranking person in this very large crowd of people from the U.S. delegation. And by the way, they're all wearing finery. They all look like kings and queens, and we're sitting there just scraping our pennies trying to get there, but they're doing it, and they get paid big bucks to do it. Isn't that nice for them?
And this is still like the State Department elite. Was it like what they say, like Pale, Male, and Yale had that kind of vibe?
Absolutely. And it, but the fellow who was actually speaking was a very honorable Black man. And I thank him for that. He stood up and he said, in May 1974, students were murdered. And we heard the U.S. government admit it at the UN Human Rights Committee that they killed and they murdered. And I'm sitting there in my seat with my dog, who's a service animal, I brought to Switzerland.
Great.
And one of my besties there. And we're like, I said, did they say kill and murder? She says, I don't know. It went so fast. We didn't know until 2 weeks later when we finally heard the tape.
Got the transcript. Oh, okay.
Boy, what a big day. And so what happened is one of the people from the High Commissioner of Human Rights came up to me, and she said, "Boy, have you had a big day?" And I said, "Oh yes." And she said to me, she says, "Is there anything that we can do for you?"
Interesting
and
question.
I gotta tell you, that's the first time we ever heard that related
what
to
a question.
State.
Right? Yeah.
What can we do to help you? We've never heard that.
Yeah.
How dare that we've never heard that? Why haven't we heard that?
Yeah.
What did we do? What did we do that we can't get our country caring about us?
And then was there any kind of follow-up?
Well, what happened is I said to her, I have a question for you. I said, what special rapporteur would be the person who would be in charge of the Kent State massacre? Now, a special rapporteur is someone who acts like as a legal representative for you within the UN, and they figure out, they take on your cause and they represent you there. And there are a lot of very, very, very famous and very hardworking special rapporteurs around the world, that work for the UN, working on, genocide and all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
She said to me, the person that I should be speaking with is related to summary and arbitrary and extrajudicial execution.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, when I heard that, it was
Yeah.
like, holy crap.
Like the people who look into death squads.
Firing squad. Because that's what my sister faced.
Yes.
And the other 3 and the 9 that got wounded. All of those people faced the firing squad. Some died, some got wounded, and some were wounded forever psychically and post-traumatic stress-wise. You don't get shot at with M1s that shoot for 5 miles, and explode. I mean, there was blood and gore everywhere. No one hears about that.
No.
This was execution.
And the photos, they never show those photos that you're talking about. Like, that's true of so many these situations. You only see the most sanitized ones.
Everything is sanitized in all ways.
Even if it's just a sanitized version, these days they always say the next story is going to contain some disturbing, like, this is the news. Like, okay, we have to be told that's going to be disturbing. Like, I don't know. It's
well, we're not allowed to see it on social media. I mean, the Kent State picture with the guy with Jeff Miller face down and Marianne Vecchio screaming in front of it, that always gets stuff put on it on Facebook. Like, you can't see, you have to uncover it. This is a Pulitzer Prize picture. Why is it being covered up? There's just no rhyme or reason with social media, with our government, with the mind speak world. We're not allowed to, know the truth. The truth will not be part of this story, and the truth will be made illegal and criminal.
Yeah. But speaking of social media, what's been your experience like with social media and trying to talk about what happened? Has it been, would you say overall just confuses the issue, or helpful? Or, I mean, would you say that the stories going viral has been helpful in any way, getting the word out, or
with regards to social media, it's been who I've aligned myself that it makes it work. If I can align our story with people that are notable, that through interviews and through association and projects and whatever, we'll get attention. If it's just me, I'm being suppressed in everything. They don't want anything that Facebook has a special hold on me.
It's 11 o'clock.
I'm sorry about that. My stuff doesn't really make the full, public feed very often. They do this to people who are activists, but I don't really like that word. I feel like that's a CIA term.
Mm-hmm.
To be called an activist.
Marginalizes you. Yeah.
Well, a protest is really an act, and there are rules about it. You're not allowed to kill a protester. A government is not allowed to kill a protester. That's in the treaty at the UN. You're not allowed to kill a protester. It's not in the US, but it's at the UN, and we've signed on to that. So that should be adhered to. But it's not, because we're the US. And so, anyone that, it's just, we managed to align with Michael Moore, and it's been our best alliance. Because Michael Moore has a big megaphone. This year for the 50th, he had me on his Rumble with Michael podcast. I hope everyone will go and listen to that. I go into how the way that this has been framed has been wrong. Kent State has been framed as, it's really a horrible thing that happened, and it's really too bad, but, let's just all move along, and that's, But my position is, this was a government a created event, and they won't allow us to know it. They won't allow us to look at the evidence related to what they did to create this. And that's just how it is. I mean, I don't know how we can make that different, but I'm endeavoring.
Yeah, yeah, you are, and it's yeah, you're doing a great job of it, and yeah, we'll see if we can change this narrative. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important right now that we start taking a look at this domestic terrorism laws, and that we make sure that they don't sweep in protest into that. But
but unfortunately, you know that that's exactly what they're going to be doing. They're going to be
going after, they're going to go after Capitol. They're going to go after Black Lives Matter before they go after Capitol Hill.
Always. They pass laws against the right and they go after the left. Always. I mean, they passed laws against the mafia and then they went after the left. I mean, they whatever they do, they find an excuse.
They'll call the people who are protesting activists, because you can kill an activist. It's not the same way for a protester. And so, I mean, there's this whole, mind molding going on where, they have us thinking the way they want us to think from their perspective. And they really spend a lot of money on that. I mean, if you watch any of the NBC and MSNBC, CNN, those people are paid to influence us.
Absolutely.
Not to tell the news.
No. And the FBI, I think by the
power, certainly not speak truth to power. Forget about that.
No.
That is not, we're not allowed that.
That's right. And they write their narrative. I think the FBI employs thousands of people by their own admission to write fake articles for newspapers. I mean, it's just part of what they do.
With conspiracy theory, the whole concept of that, it has suited them well. They have people that are working within their organization. They have contractors. They have 17 intelligence groups in America that we know of right now. 17, and they're not looking at global stuff so much, by the way. They're looking at us. We're not allowed to live our lives.
And you can have protests where the loudest people on two sides of a protest and a counter protest, they might both be working for the FBI. That's
they always have plans. Kent State was speckled with all these plants. They had Army intelligence. They had Navy intelligence. I mean, what is Navy intelligence doing there? I mean, they had everyone that they could pull in doing these special things. They had people that were, narcs. We called them narcs back then. It wasn't just narcotics.
Right.
And there were people, I have heard stories that had these weapons in their dorm rooms. These people were paid to be there.
Yep.
By the FBI and CIA or whatever, and they had a job to do. And then after they did it at Kent State, guess what? They all got bonuses and promotions.
Yep. Yep, just like the guy who did security for the Black Panthers a few months before that, who facilitated the assassination of Fred Hampton.
This is not a new concept, what they did. It is the oldest game in the book. But for some reason, we can't look at it and say, maybe that's what happened. No. I mean, we don't have any rights here. We don't have any political voice. I mean, when they write these new rules related to the domestic terrorists, I think they should ask me about it. I think I'm an expert at this point.
Absolutely.
I think I'm someone who could really help with this. I think I should be called in Congress and talk to the groups that are writing these laws and say, what has been your experience so that we don't do this again? The likelihood of that is zero. Zero. I'm an expert in this.
Right, but I've
spent the last 11 years researching this. I lived since I was 15. I'm 65 today. 50 years of my life. Standing for the right to protest and the right not to kill my sister who protested. And that there be accountability. Forget about justice.
And you should be somebody like you should be one of the experts they are calling on immediately and on a regular basis. I mean, you should be going back and forth to DC on every other month if they were serious about it. People like you. Not that you want to, but they should be calling on you. They should be calling on the mother of Trayvon Martin and a whole lot of other people who are.
They should be calling on Fred Hampton's son.
Fred Hampton's son, most definitely.
I mean, I got the the book, the new book, it's a couple years old by Haas on it, and I'm going to read it, and I know I'm going to learn a lot about COINTELPRO that I can't possibly learn any other way.
Yep.
I mean, why is that? I mean, whoever examines COINTELPRO or the FBI or NSA, they don't ever have to get an examination. And oh, by the way, the Department of Defense has never even had to do a financial audit. I mean, they were supposed to do it in 2004. 2004. Here we are.
And we're spending now
by 2014. I mean, I don't know.
By bipartisan consensus, this year's military budget is almost $800 billion. Biggest.
There's no audit on it. There's no one saying, and they're also they just fired the inspector generals at the Pentagon. So the people that are in charge of possibly even doing anything, they've all been fired. So
under Trump, or
that just happened recently. I'm not really. It just happened in the last month or so. I'm not really sure how it happened.
It's a complicated month, so we'll. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt until I find out what that's about. But not that they deserve it. But yeah.
Well, I think all inspector generals are still under a lot of pressure. I don't think. The way it's been, all these things are run, they will not allow the truth. They don't want these guys giving any reports. And if they give a report that they don't like, the guy's gone.
Yeah.
No one has any protection if you give truth.
No, they keep their narratives. Keep their narratives, and a lot of people end up mysteriously in prison. And yeah.
It's not a good time. It's not a really good time for us in this day, but
it's not an optimistic moment, huh?
There are really some good things ahead, and I'm going to just spend a minute with that.
Please.
We've made it into the UN for the U.S. Fifth Periodic Review. I will be attending. The U.S. Human Rights Committee, we got out of it, and now we're rejoined. So, and it's time for us to do that. I'm not really sure. I'll have to be doing a lot of fundraising to be able to participate. But there's also other stuff that are going on a cosmic level. And I spend a lot of time there.
Come on, give us some note of optimism, hope, cosmic, something cosmic. Yes,
I'm kind of a woo-woo.
On your blog, the Pacific Ocean is right there, beautiful with the rocks and everything. I mean, and I've been to your place in Mendocino. It's so beautiful. It's
the Allison Center for Peace here at the in Mendocino. It is actually a vortex, and this is a healing place. And I've been here 17 years now, and the fires, you
didn't get any burned down in the fires? I was wondering.
We're on the coast, so it's a real strong marine environment, which helps us, knock on wood. We are, but the fires definitely, we had an orange day or two, this last year, and that was definitely post-traumatic stress creating, because you didn't know if the orange was going to go away. Will it be an orange world? It looked very surreal. But the good news, let me give you the
good news, cosmic.
The good news is yesterday we had a new moon in Aquarius, and there are 6 planets in Aquarius right now.
Excellent.
And Aquarius is a sign related to higher thought and the collective and healing and coming together and just having a higher minded world, where, the stuff that we're striving for right now so much.
Yes.
Is coming through from wherever it comes through.
The cosmos will help out this time. That's good. Because I've been hoping that the aliens will come rescue us, but the cosmos rescuing us, that'll just be fine too.
I think that the aliens are part of it as well. I think I'm not really sure of this other force, what this other force is, but I do feel that there is, and I basically we have a job to do related to. It's important for us to hold fast to our thoughts of peace and accountability, and that things will get better, and that we will be able to live with each other and help each other and be of service to each other instead of this stuff that they're training us to do.
Yeah.
That we actually work for peace.
Yeah.
And that becomes part of our daily thought each day, that we actually spend some time putting toward the thought that that peace is possible in our world.
Yeah.
And that we can have that, and that we can make the changes that are necessary, and that they will not be thwarted forever. And we can start making some headway given this stellium with all these planets in Aquarius and this new age. This is the age of Aquarius. We were at the dawn with my sister. And so now we are actually moving into the age of Aquarius, and it's going to take all of us to manifest this vision that we can live in peace and help each other. Yeah. That's where we need to go. They can't stop us from doing that.
And it's a very powerful vision, and we naturally tend towards helping each other. Huh? They always have to teach us to fight each other, but our natural tendency is towards solidarity and mutual aid and being neighborly.
We join together, and we become a great force when we do this.
Yeah.
And that energy actually is easier energy to deal with than the hate and the violence and all that other stuff that they're filling us with. So clean your mind. Spend some time every day if you can. And actually project the peace in your life. What would be peaceful in your life? What would bring you peace? How would you manifest peace in your life? And then how would you manifest peace in your community? How would you manifest peace in your world? And start actually putting energy into this, not just a fleeting thought, not just, oh, that will never happen.
Because just living that way.
It will never happen if we do that. We have the energy right now. That Aquarian energy is the wind beneath our wings to send us into this new consciousness, a new way of living. They cannot keep us down. The human spirit is strong, and it's peaceful spirit. It's not this, what we live now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right, and I love hearing the note of optimism, and it's so true too. I mean, I always say it too. I mean, it's the human history, the human tendency is towards mutual aid. It's actually what has made our species as successful as it has become. I mean, as a species overall, I mean, we cooperate with each other. It's our biggest asset, But of course, it can be very problematical in all kinds of ways too. We cooperate with each other into groups and nations, and then slaughter each other as such. But the tendency towards cooperating is a powerful one, huh?
Well, I'm really glad I named the Kent State Truth Tribunal with the word truth involved in our cause, because the path to peace is clearly truth. You got to have truth in order to come to a peaceful place with all things.
I mean, also, if you're apologizing for something, what are you apologizing for? When they say, "Oh, yeah, sorry, we committed murder," I mean, it's nice for them to use words like that, but there needs to be real detail in exactly what they are apologizing for. If it's, if truth isn't part of the process, then there's no real justice or no real reconciliation possible.
I've thought a lot about how do you get to peace, and the best path that I know is truth. If you have truth, you can be at peace. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a natural, necessary ingredient. And it's kind of criminalized in our 2021 world. We're supposed to see it the way they see it.
Yep, that's
I ask my friends, I ask all that are listening to this that stayed on this long, could you please look for the truth in your lives and live a life as close to your own truth as you can. You'll be happier doing it. You'll heal. That's the part that's left out of this as well. When you live a path that's filled with peace and truth, you heal. You get to heal all those other things that have been denied, and you become a more together human being.
Yep. Yeah, I often give the advice for people who are depressed, get involved with helping other people, and actually it's one of the best things you can do for your own state of mind, I think it often works.
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to help each other.
Yeah.
And not make a buck.
I agree. Here. Laurel Krause, it's been such a pleasure talking to you and bringing you to an audience out there that will grow over the next few hours and days as this turns into a podcast afterwards.
I am really delighted that I got to say some of these things that I've never been able to say before. And I appreciate that you didn't make fun of me for, the woo-woo part of my stuff.
No, I love the woo-woo part. No, we got to have the woo-woo part at the end. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this place and time. Yeah.
I think it's a necessary ingredient, but a lot of people are doubting Thomas's about it. I find it's really important to live a life of peace and truth. And when you do, you feel better. And I hope
totally
that,
agree.
and it grows. If you do it, then some of your friends are going to do it, and then we become a force to reckon with. At this point, we're nothing. We're fragmented. But if we do that, I mean, this is simple. It's free. You can do it. You can do it every day. And I hope that somehow or other this word gets out. Maybe you could do a song on truth and speaking your truth, and maybe that's the way to go. I don't know.
Well, lots of songs on the subject, and it's so important, and it's so often separated. Of course, when you're talking about the people who want to talk politics and talk about the CIA and the FBI and stuff, it's often a very different group from the people who want to talk about how we can live fulfilled lives, and there's no just to kind of put, there's no reason these things need to be separated. Of course, they're all part of it's all part of this getting through this world.
Well, I'm sorry to say that I don't think that they want us to heal.
No.
And they like us to be in this place that we are because we're unempowered beings, fragmented. And we all know how it feels having lived through this year of COVID, where, what it means to be, sheltered in place. I've been sheltered in place pretty much for the year. I just went out for the first time ever last week to the city, and it was frightening. But I think that we have to start learning to help each other and stop the fragmenting, and let's get on with our peace.
Yeah. Excellent advice. I guess we'll end it there. And for all those people who don't want to, who need a bathroom break or something at this point. But thank you so much, Laurel. It's been really great talking to you.
I loved being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hope to see you in Mendocino sometime in the post-vaccine future or sometime soon.
I'd love to see any who wish to come to the Allison Center for Peace and work on peace and just be present here. We're open.
It's a yurt, right? That's the Allison Center for Peace, right? Or am I thinking of the right building or no?
No, we have 5 acres here.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 structures, the little house where people stay, and we have my place, and then we have a geodesic dome on the vortex up at the highest point on the land. And the geodesic dome is kind of like a powerful spot. I'm telling you. We got magic going on here.
Yeah.
And it's such a blessing that I've been able. My sister brought me here. What can I say?
Really? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great place to end up for sure. And then you can't go any further once you hit the ocean anyway, so you might as well stop at that point.
I do believe that I'm probably going to be living out the rest of my years here. I'm real. Yeah. It's heaven on earth, and maybe I'll get another spot additionally. But I appreciate this place. There's something very, I don't know the right word for it. There's just something here that just it goes beyond. You were here for a real short period of time, but you even picked it up. I mean,
it's gorgeous.
It's just there's something otherworldly, like the veils between the other world and here are non-existent.
Mm.
You can connect, and I do, and I'm
Mhm.
blessed.
Well, now I'm all ready for a trip down the West Coast. I think that yeah,
You can stay here.
I might just see you very soon.
I love that. I wish
Yeah.
you peace and healing.
Yeah, you too, Laurel. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye for now. And thanks everybody for tuning in to this discussion with Laurel Krause, founder of the Kent State Truth Commission and Truth Tribunal. And you can see this discussion archived on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/drovics, and it'll be up soon in podcast form with a song at the end. If you look for This Week with David Rovics, wherever you get your podcasts, and or at davidrovics.com/thisweek, or on the David Rovics mobile app. And that's all from me for now. And remember, mutual aid will get us through. Trust your neighbors. And I will be back soon. Bye.